Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of Before Coffee. It is Mucking Fun Day, the 40th week of the year, where the weather's getting cold and everyone regrets getting out of bed because it's so cold out here. It's the beginning of the week, so we're going to cover some news stories that have happened today and over the weekend. This is Before Coffee, the father and daughter comprehensive news of planet Earth, where we look up our stories 10 to 15 minutes before we start without any caffeine. And let's look at those headlines. Today on Before Coffee, Bulgaria risks losing billions in recovery money as parliamentary chaos ensues, and France's new government pledges hardline stance on migration as it cozies up to the far right.
And we have floods in Nepal and floods in the USA.
McDonald's and supermarkets fail to spot modern slavery in the UK.
And we remember the amazing life of Kris Kristofferson.
Baby Reindeer was wrongly billed by Netflix as a true story, judge finds.
And it's National Love People Day. So love people, don't hate them, unless they're really bad. I don't know what you do then. September 30th, 2024 on Before Coffee.
We are starting our Mondays slow because our bodies are still warming up, but we'll get there with this first story about Bulgaria. This is on Eurocitiv. I don't know if anybody wrote it. I'm going to go with Emilia Milcheva and Krasin Nikolov. They've wrote this story for Eurocitiv. Noisy scandals and the aggressive behavior of radical pro-Russian and populist parties prevented the Bulgarian parliament from mustering the majority needed to pass key legislation on which billions of euros in recovery and resilience plan payments depend on. Great, you love just complete and total halting of the legislative power due to one party. At midnight, this was on Thursday last week, on the 26th of September, the Bulgarian parliament was trying to hold its last scheduled session before the general election, during which it was due to adopt the European Commission's long-awaited changes to the climate neutrality roadmap. This did not happen, however, as MPs from the pro-Russian Radical Party, Revival, and the Populist Party, There Is Such a People, turned the parliament into a battlefield, forcibly occupying the rostrum and some of them ripping out cables of the sound system in the chamber. This was the last opportunity to save more than 2 billion BGN under the recovery plan, 1 billion euro. Delin Dobrov, an MP from the Bulgaria's largest party, GERB, said after the incident. Plamen Dimitrov, leader of the largest trade union organization in Bulgaria, CITUB, which represents tens of thousands of workers in the coal sector, described the events in Parliament as madness. Surely these people do not represent the interests of the workers in the coal mining sector and in the coal energy sector as a whole, Dimitrov said. Bulgaria is the only EU country to have received only one payment under the recovery plan, 1.7 billion euros out of the 5.7 billion due to the country. The money has been blocked because Parliament has refused for 2 years to adopt the new climate neutrality roadmap, the timetable for phasing out coal-fired powered stations by 2038, and introducing renewable capacity in coal regions. Because of this non-adoption of the climate neutral roadmap, 266 million euros, 30% of the second payment under the recovery plan, have been lost, said the country's caretaker finance minister, Lyudmila Petkova. Bulgaria's damage from the unaccepted reforms will first be felt by the miners and the energy workers at the state-owned Marista East Mines and Marista East 2 terminal power plant, which are facing financial collapse. For 2023, the mines have reported a loss of 70 million euros, while the TPP's profit is only 28 million. Bulgaria is the only EU country without a REP Power EU plan, under which it expects to receive 480 million euros. The REP, the RE Power EU plan aims to reduce net greenhouse gas emissions by at least 55% by 2030, which is 5 years from now, and achieve EU climate neutrality by 2050. Bulgaria does not want to lose the green transition money. Parliament could meet in an extraordinary session, despite the ongoing election campaign, to vote on the amendments and send them to European Commission for adoption by the 15th to the 20th of October at the latest, a check by Eurocitiv Bulgaria showed. Without a climate neutrality plan, Bulgaria will remain dependent on carbon-intensive energy sources, increasing the cost of emissions and burdening local businesses, households with more expensive energy. Because the parliament refused to approve the climate neutrality plan, none of the three coal regions, Stara Zagora, Pernik, and Ustendil, has received a single euro under the territorial plans for fair transition approved in December 2023. So they've had 2 years to finally pass this resolution, and a bunch of politicians decided to go crazy with madness and start pulling out cables and attacking each other in Congress, basically. Meanwhile, failure to comply with EU directives to reduce carbon emissions and achieve climate neutrality could lead to financial penalties. The EU imposes strict controls on the implementation of green policies, and Bulgaria could face serious legal consequences, including legal action before the EU Court of Justice. In more political fracturing, because that's what we like to wake up to on a Monday, France's new government, this is on AP News by Diane Jantet and Sylvie Corbet. France's new government is set to take a hardline approach to migration issues, as key officials have pledged to significantly reduce the number of people entering and staying illegally in the country. After calling for the snap election by Emmanuel Macron and Michel Barnier, a veteran conservative, taking over from the Republicans Party, they were hoping the Brexit negotiator would work with the divided legislature to end the political turmoil that has upended French politics in recent months. The Barnier government, dominated by conservatives and centrists, does not have any majority in parliament, and efforts to pass any new legislation are bound to be fought and potentially blocked. The National Assembly is now split between three major political blocs: the left-wing New Popular Front leftist coalition, Macron's centrist ally and who made a deal with the Conservatives, and the far-right National Rally Party, the largest single party in the new assembly. What does that mean? Well, that means they either have to make deals with the leftist coalition, which I guess is probably unlikely, and are more likely to make deals with the far right, which is right now the largest single party in the new assembly, not a coalition. In recent televised interviews, Barnier criticized French borders as sieves and expressed concern that migratory flows were not under control. He promised to limit immigration, citing measures taken by neighboring countries like Germany, which expanded controls at all land borders earlier this month. Critics have denounced Barnier's government immigration stance as strongly influenced by the National Rally proposals, as its survival depends on the party's goodwill. Far-right and left-wing lawmakers can force the whole government to resign on condition they agree on a no-confidence vote. Marine Le Pen, the National Rally's leading figure, said she would not seek to bring down the new government for now. Wait and see its initial acts. In a recent interview with La Tribune Dimanche newspaper, she said, "It is undeniable that Michel Barnier seems to have on migration the same assessment as ours." Yeah, that's great. It's lovely when you side with the far right. So, Yanzi Monzid, who started working alongside migrants during 2015 migration crisis when well over 1 million people swept into Europe, most fleeing war in Syria and Iraq, denounced France's long-coming shift to the right. Monzi's non-profit Utopia 56 currently runs a temporary shelter in Paris suburbs and coordinates hundreds of voluntary workers daily in different French regions. He said that decades ago, when France's National Rally was still on the fringes, it came up with the rhetoric that welcoming migrants would dramatically increase the number of foreigners coming into the country and wreak havoc in French society. This has slowly but steadily spread to other parties, including the left, Monzi said. The nonprofit founder believes migrants have been met with increasingly hard conditions in France and the rest of Europe. The message is sent to those seeking to come to the country is very clear. "We no longer welcome you," said Manzi. Some proposals of stem migration could prove difficult to implement, as they need to go through the already divided parliament, while others, such as sanctioning migrants who have entered France illegally, appear to go against European rulings. Barnier suggested while campaigning in vain to be his party's presidential candidate in 2022 that France should find ways to bypass rulings from the Court of Justice of the European Union and the European Court of Human Rights. Yeah, that's right. That's how we're going to run the government. Bypass all previous things that have been ruled and that your country has agreed with because it was a different guy who agreed with it. Let's just bypass it. Find a loophole, because that's the only way we can run our country. Maybe you're just not doing the right thing, and you should stop. In 2023, France received about 145,000 new asylum requests from up to 115 in 2022, according to statistics from the Interior Ministry. This is the highest number of applications recorded since 2016. France ranks third in European Union behind Germany and Spain, which recorded over 351,000 for Germany and 160,000 in Spain for applications. So these are just applications. These aren't actually the people entering the country. Just how many applications you receive. And some of those applications might be from the same people, right? Those 300 to Germany or those 160 to Spain. Probably multiple of those are the same people. They're just trying to get out of where they're living because, well, they have a right to seek asylum from terrible political regimes and climate change and all other sorts of things that are happening out there. And Europe is just like, no, don't come here. You're going to ruin what we've done, which is not really that great. So I don't know why we're acting like it's the best thing since sliced bread. But there's my two news stories about political turmoil. Onto your weather turmoil, I guess.
Yes. Political turmoil. From political turmoil to Mother Nature's turmoil. We're going to go to Nepal first. Nepal had floods this weekend. Still ongoing, of course. This is from Reuters.com. Gopal Sharma at Kathmandu. Nepal began on Monday to grapple with damage wrought by deadly floods and landslides triggered by heavy rain as residents brace for a daunting task of cleaning homes and extracting their belongings from the mud in their homes. At least 192 people died and 32 were still missing in 2 days of incessant rains caused by a low pressure system in the Bay of Bengal over the areas in India bordering Nepal. In the northern areas of Bangladesh, separated from Nepal by a tiny strip of Indian territory, more than 100,000 people were stranded following heavy rains and the onrush of water from upstream, officials said. Hill-ringed Kathmandu Valley, which is home to 4 million people and the capital, alone saw 56 deaths and suffered one of the worst devastations in recent years, where rivers spilled over banks and flooded homes, hospitals, roads, bridges, and markets. Prithvi Subha Gorung, a senior minister and cabinet spokesperson, said the government was assessing the extent of the damage and cost of rebuilding. Some weather stations at Kathmandu recorded the highest 24-hour rainfall for decades, officials said. Surya Raj Acharya, an infrastructure and urban planning expert, said haphazard construction and urbanization of Kathmandu without basic engineering and planning had contributed to huge damage. Yes, huge population growth without infrastructure to support it. Riverbanks are encroached by people for construction of houses, ignoring the basic enforcement and of engineering and planning without provisions for drainage and sewage system, he said. There is no adequate outlet for river water during the rainy season, which causes the flood water to enter homes. Nepal's geography, terrain, river systems, monsoon patterns, and the potential for extreme climates must be taken into consideration for such planning, Acharya said. Climate scientists echoed his view. Climate change played a significant role in exacerbating the disaster, compounded by poor urban planning and infrastructure, said Arun Bhakta Shrestha, a climate and environmental risk expert at the Kathmandu-based International Center for Integrated Mountain Development. In Bangladesh, vast areas of land in 5 northern districts have been submerged after sudden swelling of the Titsa River which crossed its danger mark at several points, district officials said. The rising waters had devastated large areas of farmland, washing away crops such as paddy and vegetables, along with fish farms, leaving many farmers facing severe losses. Homes, roads, and critical infrastructure have also been inundated, forcing people to flee to higher ground for safety. The situation could worsen in the coming days, with the Bangladesh Weather Office warning for more rain. So there's the Far Eastern flooding. And on to America's flooding. This is Hurricane Helene's aftermath. This is from Reuters.com. Alyssa Pointer, Maria Cardona, and Octavio Jones. Helene kills at least 60. Homes and memories washed away. Wash away your memory? That's harder to do. Well, let's see what they're talking about here. The southeastern United States began a huge cleanup and recovery effort on Sunday, and the death toll climbed towards 100 after Hurricane Helene knocked out power for millions, destroying the roads and bridges and causing dramatic flooding from Florida to Virginia. The storm's winds, rain, and storm surge killed at least 90 people in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, and Virginia, according to the Reuters tally of state and local officials. Officials feared more bodies would be discovered. With cell phone towers down across the region, hundreds of people had yet to make contact with loved ones and were listed as unaccounted for. Damage estimates range from $15 billion to more than $100 billion, insurers and forecasters said over the weekend, as the water systems, communications, and critical transportation routes were affected. Property damage and lost economic output will become clearer as officials assess the destruction. In North Carolina, nearly all the deaths were in Buncombe County, where 30 people died, Sheriff Quentin Miller told a video conference call with reporters. County Manager Avril Pinder said she was asking the state for emergency food and drinking water. Streets in the picturesque city of Asheville were submerged in floodwater. This is a devastating catastrophe of historic proportions, Governor Roy Cooper told CNN. People that I talked to in western North Carolina say they have never seen anything like this. Search and rescue teams from 19 states and the U.S. government have converged on the state, Cooper said, adding that some roads could take months to repair. In Flat Rock, North Carolina, there were widespread blackouts and people waited for hours in line for gas. Grocery stores are closed, cell phone service is out, Chip Frank, 62, said as he entered the third hour waiting in line. It all depends on these gas stations. You're not going to be able to go nowhere. It's just a scary feeling. Roughly 2.7 million customers throughout the South were without power on Sunday, a U.S. Energy Department official said, down 40% from Friday after a unprecedented storm surges. Ferocious winds and perilous conditions extended hundreds of miles inland. South Carolina reported 25 dead, Georgia 17, and Florida 11, according to the governors of those states. CNN reported a total of 93 dead across the South, citing state and local officials. President Joe Biden plans to visit the affected areas this week once he can do so without disrupting emergency services, the White House said. It's tragic, Biden told reporters on Sunday, pledging recovery assistance after declaring major disasters in Florida and North Carolina and emergencies in Florida, North Carolina, Tennessee, South Carolina, Georgia, Virginia, and Alabama. You saw the photographs. It's stunning. Vice President and Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris planned to cut short a campaign trip in Nevada on Monday to take part in briefings in Washington on the hurricane response and will visit the region. When doing so, won't impede the response, a White House official said. Trump plans to visit. Helene slammed into Florida's Gulf Coast on Thursday night, triggering days of driving rain and destroying homes that stood for decades. In Horseshoe Beach on Florida's Gulf Coast, about 70 miles west of Gainesville, Charlene Huggins surveyed the debris of her blown-out house, pulling a jacket out of the rubble on Saturday. 5 generations lived in this house, from my grandmother, my father, myself, my daughter, my son, my granddaughter, Huggins said, holding a chipped glass cake. So there's a lot of memories here. It just breaks your heart. Not far away, James Ellenberg stood on the property where his own family has lived for 4 generations. I took my first step right here in this yard. The roof of one home sat flat in the dirt, its walls blown away. In coastal Steinhatchee, a storm surge, a wall of seawater pushed ashore by winds 8 to 10 feet, moved mobile homes, the weather service said. I'm getting tongue fatigue. Other areas saw a form of storm surge of 15 feet. A nearby tiny community of Spring Warrior Fish Camp, great name for a town, Spring Warrior Fish Camp, name of the town. People were surveying the damage this Saturday and still waiting for emergency and responder aid. No one thinks of us back here, said David Hall, as he and his wife dug through seagrass and dead fish in the office of a hotel they own. Many of the community's homes are built on stilts because of the local ordinance and survived heavy damage. Kristen McQueen, who was helping friends clean up after their house was destroyed in nearby Keaton Beach, it's complete devastation, she said. The houses had just been ripped off their slabs. So, 2 parts of the country dealing with heavy floods. A wide swath of the south caught the wrath of Helene. Back to you.
Yeah, terrible. I saw a lot of posts on social media over the weekend of people going, how could this happen? Why didn't we have any warning? And of course, of the other people saying, they said there was a storm coming. And it's really sad that a lot of people don't take them seriously. I probably wouldn't take it seriously either. Because I grew up in hurricanes, right? But
all
if
had
a
better
hurricane warning
infrastructure
happened or a tornado warning happened where I live now, I would take it very seriously because that never happens here. There's no people don't have the experience and they don't know how to deal with those kind of stuff. So, and that's the same thing with the area, by Tennessee.
What you do is you leave before the flood gets there if you know it's coming.
And of course, people just say, "Are you going to pay me to leave?" And it's just like, okay, so you just want to be a victim and complain about how everything in your life sucks and you couldn't have done anything. Okay, sorry. Wrong. I shouldn't talk to you anymore. It's basically what that ends up being.
Mother Nature is like, we just had it with humans. Let's just face it.
Yeah.
I've accepted that.
But hopefully everyone who was able to makes it out and can get back on their feet at some point, because I'm sure the government isn't just going to leave you laying out there with no support, because this is the thing, right? Project 2025 is going to cut the
they're going to get rid of FEMA and the National Ocean.
NOAA,
they're going to get rid of the weather forecaster.
So
they're going to let private organizations.
A lot of people are saying this is the future. If you let Project 2025 go into law, this is the future. People having no support, no warnings, just your whole house has been swept away and no one gives a shit.
And you go have incompetent political appointees running every organization.
Mm-hmm. Well, from natural disasters to social disasters, we've got a story coming out of the BBC, out of the UK, of legalized, or I should say, modernized slavery. And nobody was reporting at all. It was just happening, and it was being allowed to happen. This is by William McLennan, Phil Shepka, and John Ironmonger. Signs that modern slavery victims were being forced to work at McDonald's branch in a factory supplying bread products to major supermarkets were missed for years, the BBC has found. A gang forced 16 victims to work at either the fast food restaurant or the factory, which supplied Asda, Co-op, M&S, Sainsbury, Tesco, and Waitrose. While well-established signs of slavery, including paying the wages of 4 men into one bank account, were missed, while the victims from the Czech Republic were exploited for over 4 years. McDonald's UK said it has improved systems for spotting potential risks, while the British Retail Consortium said its members would learn from the case. 6 members of the family-run human trafficking network from the Czech Republic have been convicted in 2 criminal trials, which were delayed by the COVID pandemic. Reporting restrictions have prevented coverage of most of the case, but BBC England can now reveal the full scale of the gang's crimes and the missed opportunities to stop them. 9 victims were forced to work at the McDonald's branch in Caxton, Cambridgeshire. 9 worked at the Pita Bread Company with factories in Hoddesdon and Hertfordshire and Tottenham in North London, which made supermarket-owned brand products. There were 16 victims in total across the sites, as 2 worked at both McDonald's and the factory. Pavel left and Roman waived their anonymity, shared their stories of being trafficked to the UK and forced to work in McDonald's branch. The victims, who were all vulnerable, most having experienced homelessness or addiction, earned at least the legal minimum wage, but nearly all of their pay was stolen by the gang. While they lived on a few pounds a day in a cramped accommodation, including a leaked shed and an unheated caravan, police discovered their work was funding luxury cars, gold jewelry, and a property in the Czech Republic for the gang. So they were being paid in pounds, and then I guess laundering those pounds into whatever the Czech use for money. I don't know. I think they don't use the euro. I think they use their own currency, which is called the koruna, the Czech koruna. So they were putting the pounds to koruna, which let's say minimum wage is 15 pounds. I know it isn't, but let's say it was. So that's like 452 koruna that they were getting from one of the 12 people they were enslaving. And they probably, they were able to get luxury cars, gold jewelry, and property in the Czech Republic with that money. On several occasions, victims escaped and fled home, only to be tracked down and trafficked back to the UK. The exploitation ended in October 2019 after victims contacted the police in the Czech Republic, who then tipped off their British counterparts. But warning signs had been missed for at least 4 years. The BBC has discovered by reviewing legal documents from the gang's trial and interviewing the three of the victims. The undetected red flags include victims' wages were paid into bank accounts in other people's names. At the McDonald's, at least 4 victims' wages totaling £215,000 were being paid into one account, controlled by the gang. Victims were unable to speak English, and job applications were completed by a gang member, who was even able to sit in on the job interviews as a translator. Victims worked extreme hours at McDonald's, up to 70 to 100 a week. One victim worked a 30-hour shift. The UN's International Labour Organization says excessive overtime is an indicator of forced labor. Multiple employees had the same registered address. 9 victims lived in the same terraced home in Enfield in North London while working at a bakery. Really concerns me that so many red flags were missed, and that maybe the companies didn't do enough to protect vulnerable workers, said Dame Sarah Thornton, the former independent anti-slavery commissioner, who reviewed the BBC findings. It's bad when you have to have an anti-slavery commissioner. God damn. Detective Sergeant Kris Kristofferson, who led the Cambridgeshire police investigation, said there were massive opportunities that were missed to detect the slavery and alert authorities sooner. Ultimately, we could have been in a situation to end the exploitation much earlier had we been made aware, he said. Like many of the victims, Pavel, who has waived his legal right to anonymity, was homeless in the Czech Republic when he was approached by the gang in 2016. He says he was lured in with a false promise of well-paid job in the UK, where he could, at the time, work legally. Because of the EU, right? Brexit hadn't happened yet. But the reality of what he experienced has left lasting scars, he said. You can't undo the damage to my mental health. It will always live with me. He was given just a few pounds a day in cash by his exploiters, despite working 70 hours a week at McDonald's, he said. The gang, led by brothers Ernest and Zdenek Drevkanak, confiscated the passports of all their victims and controlled them through fear and violence, police found. We were afraid, Pavel said. If we were to escape and go home, Ernest Drevkanak has a lot of friends in our town. Half the town were his mates. Pavel was targeted by the gang while homeless in the Czech Republic. The gang treated their victims like livestock, feeding them just enough to keep them going, according to Met's Detective Inspector Melanie Lillywhite. He said victims were controlled by invisible handcuffs, monitored by CCTV, prevented from using phones or the internet, and unable to speak English. They were really cut off from the outside world, she said. While the gang has been convicted in court, Pavel believes McDonald's also shares some responsibility. Yeah, they just, it is the corporation or at least the restaurant, like the local managing restaurant to be like, why the hell is this guy working 100 hours a week? That's illegal. That's too much overtime. They shouldn't be working that much. And they should have been like, wow, just send the money to this bank account without your name. That's normal. Like, there's so many red flags they should have flagged themselves as a restaurant, and they just didn't. I do feel partially exploited by McDonald's because they didn't act, he said. I thought if I was working for McDonald's that they would be a little more cautious, that they would notice. Two former colleagues told the BBC that the extreme hours the men worked and the impact they had on them was plain to see. Yeah, so a manager should have stepped in and said, dude, what's the problem? Gang leaders Zendek Drevenak left and his brother Ernest controlled their victims with fear and violence. Like most McDonald's, the Caxton outlet on the A428 is a franchise, which means an independent business pays the fast food giant to allow it to run the restaurant. Okay, so that's even worse. While victims worked there between 2015 and 2019, it was run by two different franchise holders. The BBC had contacted both, but neither responded, probably because they're embarrassed that they also exploited their workers and treated them terribly. McDonald's UK declined an offer for an interview, but provided a statement on behalf of the corporation and its franchises. It said that current franchisee Ahmet Mustafa had only been exposed to the full depth of these horrific and complex and sophisticated crimes in the course of his cooperating with police and prosecution. The company said it cares deeply about all employees and promised that working with franchises, it would play our part alongside governments, NGOs, and wider society to help combat the evils of modern slavery. It also said it commissioned an independent review in October 2023 and had taken action to prove its ability to detect and deter potential risks such as shared bank accounts, excessive working hours, and revealed the use of interpreters in interviews. The gang used their victims' wages to finance luxury cars and a 3-story house in the Czech Republic. The bakery company Specialty Flatbread Ltd. ceased trading and went into administration in 2022. Some of the supermarkets detected the slavery while victims worked at the factory between 2012 and 2019. Dame Sarah said she had expected the retailers to be doing pretty thorough due diligence, adding that they normally take much greater care about their own brand products because that's their reputation that's on the line. Sainsbury's said it stopped using the company as an own brand supplier in 2016. The others only stopped because of the police, after they rescued the victims in 2019. As I told the BBC, it was disappointed that a historic case had been found in our supply chain, adding that it would review every case, identify and act upon the learnings. It said it had made 3 site visits but focused solely on food safety and had stopped using the factory in 2020. There again, it's just so disappointing that people who are making billions every year off their workers don't even ask how the workers are doing, right? How's the food? Because that's what our customers care about. Oh, the workers are being enslaved? Not my problem, as long as the bread tastes good. Tesco said inspections supported by information from anti-slavery charity Unseen revealed concerning working practices, and the company ceased all orders from the supplier in 2020. Great Rose said it pulled out in 2021 after its audits led to concerns about factory standards and working conditions. Co-op said it made a number of unannounced inspections, including worker interviews, found no signs of modern slavery, adding that the company actively worked to tackle the shocking issue both in the UK and abroad. M&S said it suspended and delisted the company in 2020 after it became aware of the potentially breaches of ethical labor standards via the Modern Slavery Helpline. The British Retail Consortium said workers' welfare was fundamental to retailers, who said it acted quickly when concerns are raised. Nonetheless, it is important that the retail industry learns from cases like this to continually strengthen due diligence, said. Specialty Flatbreads director Andrew Taralambos did not respond to Ring requests for comment, but in a phone call from the BBC said he had supported the police in prosecution, adding that the company had been thoroughly audited by top law firms and everything they were doing was legal. I swear, I'm innocent. So, the former PM, who now leads the Global Commission on Modern Slavery, Theresa May, and human trafficking, said the case was frankly shocking and shows large companies not properly looking into their supply chains. said the Global Commission was reviewing what new laws are needed to ensure action is being taken by companies. Responding to the case, the government said it would set out next steps on the issue of modern slavery in due course. It said it was committed to tackling all forms of modern slavery and pursue gangs and employees with every lever at our disposal while ensuring the victims are provided with support they need. So there's your big reveal of modern slavery in the UK that was happening right under everyone's nose, and they just didn't ignore the red flags completely. But now they've gotten their justice, and the two traffickers have been arrested, and I think probably all of their everything they earned has been seized by the government, most likely. Hopefully, the victims can get some of that compensation for the crimes that's been committed against them. Maybe they can get the luxury cars and sell them and, not be homeless anymore in the Czech Republic and finally be able to return home to their families, as they were constantly tossed back to the UK every time they escaped. That's my story. On to yours.
What's a little slavery when you get profit margins to think of?
It's very easy to happen, Yeah.
Well, on to entertainment news. Sad news. Kris Kristofferson has passed away at the age of 88. This is from AP News. Andrew Dalton and Kristen M. Hall. This is Kris Kristofferson, a Rhodes Scholar with a deft writing style and a rough charisma, who became a country music superstar and an A-list Hollywood actor, has died. Kristofferson died at his home in Maui, Hawaii on Saturday. Family spokesman E.B. McFarland said in an email. He was 88. McFarland said Kristofferson died peacefully surrounded by his family. No cause was given. Starting back in the 1960s, the Brownsville, Texas native wrote such country and rock and roll standards as Sunday Morning Coming Down, which I sent you a video link to. Sorry, I didn't let you know, but I did send you a clip.
Okay.
Sunday Morning Coming Down, which was recorded by Johnny Cash. Help Me Make It Through the Night, For the Good Times, and Me and Bobby McGee. Kris Kristofferson was a singer himself, but many of his songs are best known as performed by others, whether Ray Price crooning For the Good Times or Janis Joplin belting out Me and Bobby McGee. He starred opposite Ellen Burstyn in director Martin Scorsese's 1974 film Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, starred opposite Barbra Streisand in the 1976's A Star Is Born, and acted along Wesley Snipes in Marvel's Blade movies. Kristofferson, who could recite William Blake from memory, wove intricate folk lyrics about loneliness and tender romance into popular country music. With his long hair and bell-bottom slacks and countercultural songs influenced by Bob Dylan, he represented a new breed of country songwriters along with such peers as Willie Nelson, John Prine, and Tom T. Hall. In fact, he discovered John Prine.
Really?
Well,
wow.
He didn't discover him necessarily, but he brought him to New York. There was no better songwriter alive than Kris Kristofferson, Nelson said in the 2009 BMI Award ceremony for Kristofferson. Everything he writes is a standard, and we're all just going to have to live with that. We're all just going to have to live with that. Kristofferson retired from performing and recording in 2021, making only occasional guest appearances on stage, including a performance with Cash's daughter Roseanne at Willie Nelson's 90th birthday celebration at the Hollywood Bowl in Los Angeles in 2023. The two sang Loving Her Was Easier Than Anything I'll Ever Do Again, a song that was a hit for Kristofferson and a longtime live staple for Nelson, another great interpreter of his work. Nelson and Kristofferson would join voices with Johnny Cash and Waylon Jennings to create the country supergroup The Highwaymen, starting in the mid-1980s. Kristofferson was this is a list of things to be. Think about this. Kristofferson was a Golden Gloves boxer, a rugby star, a football player in college. He received a master's degree in English from Metron College at the University of Oxford in England. Flew helicopters as a captain in the U.S. Army, but turned down an appointment to teach at the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, New York,
Wow.
to pursue songwriting in Nashville. Hoping to break into the industry, he worked as a part-time janitor at Columbia Records Music Row, and when Dylan recorded tracks for Blonde on Blonde double album. So he was a janitor at the studio where just an unknown janitor at the studio where Bob Dylan recorded Blonde on Blonde. At times, the legend of Kris Kristofferson was larger than life. Cash liked to tell the most exaggerated story of how Kristofferson landed a helicopter on Cash's lawn to give him a tape of Sunday Morning Coming Down with a beer in one hand. Over the years in the interviews, Kristofferson said, with all respect to Cash, while he did land a helicopter at Cash's house, the man in black wasn't even home at the time. The demo tape was a song that no one ever actually cut, and he certainly couldn't fly a helicopter holding a beer. So Kristofferson's calling bullshit on Johnny Cash's story about him landing a helicopter. He wasn't even home then. Anyway, in 2006 interview with the Associated Press, he said he might not have had a career without Johnny Cash. Shaking his hand when I was still in the Army backstage at the Grand Ole Opry was the moment I decided I'd come back. It was electric. He kind of took me under his wing before he cut any of my songs. He cut my first record, and that was Record of the Year. He put me on stage for the first time. One of his most recorded songs, Me and Bobby McGee, was written based on a recommendation from Monument Records founder Fred Foster. Foster had a song title in his head called Me and Bobby McKee, named after his female secretary in the building. Kristofferson said in an interview in the magazine Performing Songwriter that he was inspired to write the lyrics about a man and a woman on the road together after watching the Federico Fellini film La Strada. Joplin, who had a closer relationship with Kristofferson, changed the lyric to make Bobby McGee a man and cut her version to just days before she died in 1970 from a drug overdose. The recording became a posthumous #1 hit for Joplin. Hits that Kristofferson recorded include Watch Closely Now, Desperados Waiting for a Train, A Song I'd Like to Sing, and Jesus Was a Capricorn. In 1973, he married fellow songwriter Rita Coolidge, and together they had a successful duet career that earned them 2 Grammy Awards. They divorced in 1980. The formation of the Highwaymen with Nelson Cash and Jennings was another pivotal point in his career as a performer. I think I was different from the other guys in that I came in as a fan of all of them, Kristofferson told AP in 2005. I had respect for them when I was in the Army. When I went to Nashville, they were like major heroes of mine because they were people who took the music seriously. To be not only recorded by them, but to be friends with them and to work side by side was just a little unreal. It was like seeing your face on Mount Rushmore. The group put out just 3 albums between 85 and 95. Jennings died in 2002. Cash died a year later. Kristofferson said in 2005 that there was some talk about reforming a group with other artists such as George Jones or Hank Williams Jr. Forget Hank Williams. But Kristofferson said it wouldn't have been the same. No kidding. Hank Williams Jr. has no talent. Anyway, when I looked at, plus he's an asshole. So people that work with him will say that. When I look back now, I know I hear Willie say it was the best time of his life, Kristofferson said in 2005. For me, I wish I was more aware of how short of a time it would be. It was several years, but it was like the blink of an eye. I wish I would have cherished each moment. Among the 4, only Nelson is now alive. Kristofferson's sharp-tongued political lyrics sometimes hurt his popularity, especially in the 1980s. His 1989 album, Third World Warrior, was focused on Central America and what the United States policy had wrought there. But critics and fans weren't excited about the overtly political songs. He said in 1995 interview with the AP, remember the woman complaining about one of the songs began with killing babies in the name of freedom. And I said, well, what made you mad? The fact that I was saying it or the fact that we're doing it? To me, they were getting mad at me because I was telling them what was going on. That's exactly right. People don't want to be, I don't want information, I want to feel good. Country music is made just to make you feel good about the past of America. It gloss it over. That's the whole, not the Kristofferson part, but a lot of it nowadays is just glossy. America, ooh, we're so special. Country music. I was an ROTC in college, it was just taken for granted in my family. I'm sorry, let's do this again. As the son of an Air Force general, he enlisted in the Army in the 1960s because it was expected of him. I was in ROTC in college, and it was just taken for granted in my family that I do my service, he said in 2006 AP interview. From my background and the generation I came from, honor and serving your country was taken for granted. So later, when you come to question some of the things that have been done in your name, it was particularly painful. Hollywood may have saved his music career, but he still got exposure through his film and television appearance, even when he couldn't afford a tour with his full band. Kris Kristofferson's first role was in Dennis Hopper's The Last Movie in 1971. He had a fondness for westerns, and would use his gravelly voice to play attractive, stoic leading man. He was Ellen Burstyn's rugged, handsome love interest in Alice Doesn't Love You Anymore, and a tragic rock star in a rocky relationship with Streisand in A Star Is Born. A role echoed by Bradley Cooper in the 2018 remake. He was the young outlaw in the director Sam Peckinpah's 1973 Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, a truck driver in the same director with 1978's Convoy, a corrupt sheriff in a director John Sayles' 1996 Lone Star. He also starred in Hollywood's biggest financial flops, Heaven's Gate, a 1980 Western that ran tens of millions of dollars over budget. And in a rare appearance in the superhero movie, he played the mentor of Wesley Snipes in the vampire hunter Blade. He described it in the 2006 AP interview how he got his first acting gigs when he performed in Los Angeles. It just happened that my first professional gig was at the Troubadour in LA opening for Linda Ronstadt, Kristofferson said. Robert Hilburn wrote a fantastic review of the concert, was held over for a week. There were a bunch of movie people coming in there, and I started getting film offers with no experience. Of course, I had no experience performing either. So there's a long drawn-out story for Kris Kristofferson, has passed away at the age of 88. Did a lot of stuff, even before he was a country music star. He had done a lot of stuff. So.
A lot of stuff, yeah. That's so many things. Flying helicopters, being a janitor, Crazy.
Helicopter pilot, Rhodes Scholar.
I went to.
Could have taught at West Point.
Degrees in English, I think is what you said. What did he have a degree in?
Oh, he was a Rhodes Scholar. What was his degree? And I closed the story already.
Oh, okay. Well, he did a lot of stuff.
I closed the story.
Really impressive, and kind of proof that you don't have to be one thing, right? You can be multiple things in life, and don't settle for just being that one thing. Too many people out there are like, oh, what am I doing with my life? I'm not like this celebrity who does this. And it's like, there's plenty of celebrities out there who did plenty of stuff. I think
took a job as a janitor.
I think another example is
so you can be close to recording
right now.
music.
Wolverine, the guy who plays Wolverine. I can't think of his name right now. He used to be a teacher. He was a gym teacher, before he got his big role and became famous, and all Greatest Showman and all sorts of Les Miserables. He's been in all sorts of things, acclaimed things, and before that he was just a gym teacher. So don't let your life end without.
Sting was a school teacher.
Yeah, without running towards all the things you want to do, because the only person who stops you from your dreams is yourself, really. Anyways, enough of that. Let's talk about the big Baby Reindeer controversy that's been happening since the show came out on Netflix, because somebody sued them for defamation. And now there's some new rulings on this by a U.S. judge. This is from Sean Kane on The Guardian. A U.S. judge has ruled that the woman accused of stalking Baby Reindeer creator Richard Gadd can pursue her defamation lawsuit against Netflix, noting that the show was wrongly billed as a true story when Netflix made no effort to fact-check Gadd's story or disguise Harvey as the inspiration for Martha. Fiona Harvey, the woman whom the show's character Martha is based on, has alleged the show falsely implied that she sexually assaulted Gadd and gouged his eyes, and that she had been sent to prison for stalking him. After viewers managed to identify her as the inspiration for Martha, against Gad's wishes, Harvey filed a US $170 million lawsuit, arguing that the show had defamed her by depicting Martha as a convicted stalker, as she had not been convicted of a crime. In his ruling handed down on Friday, which was the 27th, I think, of September? Yes. On the 27th of September, U.S. District Judge Gary Klausner noted that because the show's episodes began with the line, "This is a true story," it invited viewers to take the story as fact. While Harvey's purported actions are reprehensible, Klausner found Martha's actions in the show are worse than what Harvey is accused of in reality. So yeah, she stalked the guy, but she didn't gouge his eyes out and go to prison. There is a major difference between stalking and being convicted of stalking in a court of law, he wrote. Likewise, there are major differences between inappropriate touching and sexual assault, as well as between shoving and gouging others' eyes. While plaintiff's purported actions are reprehensible, defendant's statements are of a worse degree and could produce a different effect in the mind of a viewer. In his defense, Gad alleged that Harvey stalked him for years while he worked at the London pub, would pinch his behind, and sent him thousands of disturbing emails and voicemail messages. He said that while he reported her to police, she got a harassment warning and was not criminally prosecuted or sent to jail. I mean, did she stop stalking you though? Because if she stopped stalking you after that, then that's it. That's the end of the story. Not as fun for a Netflix show, I get it, but Gad had said that the Netflix show and the stage play on which it was based were both fictionalized and not intended as a beat-for-beat recounting of reality. In June, the Sunday Times reported that Gad had reservations off the line, "This is a true story," but that it was included at Netflix's request. Aha, so they're going to take the downfall for it. Klausner noted that Sunday Times article in his ruling arguing that it could demonstrate actual malice if Netflix chose to represent the story as fact when they knew it was fictionalized. Harvey was never named in Baby Reindeer, but members of the public quickly identified her through her social media posts. Harvey had said she had received death threats, with Klausner acknowledging that she had suffered severe emotional distress and felt fearful about going outside. Klausner said Netflix should have known that the statements and portrayal of plaintiffs through Martha were false, and that viewers would discover her identity and harass her based on these false statements and portrayals. Yet defendants made no efforts to investigate the accuracy of these statements and portrayals or take further measures to hide her identity. Yeah, you see the actress who plays her and the actual person that is being portrayed, they are almost, they look so the same. They're like the same person. It's really, really great portrayal of a real person, which explains why they were able to find her so easily. Klausner denied Netflix's motion to throw out the suit and dismissed Harvey's claim for negligence, violation of her publicity rights, and her punitive damages. But the judge allowed Harvey to pursue a claim of intentional infliction of emotional distress, which applies to extreme and outrageous false statements. It appears that a reasonable viewer could understand the statements about Martha to be about the plaintiff. The judge wrote, "The series states the plaintiff is a convicted criminal who sexually and violently assaulted Gad. These statements may rise to a level of extreme and outrageous conduct." Earlier this month, actor Jessica Gunning won an Emmy for her portrayal of Martha in Baby Reindeer, which won 4 Emmys overall. So, like I said, she did a really great job of making a convincing villain. Unfortunately, that villain was a real person who doesn't, right, like I said, I don't know her entire life story, but it sounds like perhaps after she was given her harassment warning, she probably stopped harassing the guy and went away. But that doesn't mean she deserves for the rest of her life to be, sent death threats for what she did. I'm so tired, right, of people serving time in prison, going to jail, and then you're still treated as a criminal after you serve your time. The whole point of serving time is that you've done your punishment, right? I, laundered money, I went to jail, I've been punished. You should be now a clean slate. But you're not a clean slate, especially in the US of all places, right? Criminals, past criminals, ex-felons, whatever you want to call them, can't get jobs, right? They can't even work at McDonald's because, hey, you did a crime in the past. Yeah, I went to jail for that. Well, you could do a crime again.
But the Hamburglar.
Yeah, all right.
The Hamburglar gets a job at McDonald's.
Yeah. The thing is, it's kind of like a catch-22. If you do crime, you're going to repeat the crime, right? But you're also going to repeat the crime because people think you're going to repeat the crime, right? Like, you can't win. It's not winning. Like, well, everyone thinks I'm a stalker that stabs his eyes out. Might as well just do it then. At least I might as well be guilty for the thing people think I've done. So, not saying everyone does that, but it's not surprising to me that, people don't want to be constantly reminded of their own crimes and put on a, she didn't violently assault him, right? She just stalked him. So, just let her have harassment warning and move on with her life. And stop bringing it up. That's my story. She's allowed to file for defamation, right. So good for her. And she probably should do it in the UK because the UK has way better defamation lawsuit ability, but we'll see what happens with that if we ever hear updates on this, if she decides to do it. And on to this day in history.
Okay, this day in history. This day, September 30th, the last day of September is 3/4 of the way through the year. That hardly seems possible, but we are 3/4, 75% through the year. And we'll go back to September 30th in 1773. The Polish Sejm, or legislature, ratified the treaty that led to the first partition of Poland by Russia, Prussia, and Austria. Oh, the partitions of Poland. You'd think they would stop there, but nope. In 1791, the opera The Magic Flute by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart premiered in Vienna. In 1870, French physicist Jean Perrin, who received the Nobel Prize for Physics in 1926, was born. He was for his studies of the Brownian motion of minute particles. He was studying the minute particles, he was. Happy birthday, Jean Perrin. In 1895, French troops occupied Antananarivo, Madagascar, after the refusal of Reinliarivoni, the prime minister, to submit to French suzerainty. Some more words I had never heard before. Suzerainty. And this guy's name, Reinliarivoni. Reinliarivoni. You gotta say it really fast. 1924, Truman Capote was born, American novelist and short story writer who was perhaps best known for his novel In Cold Blood. In 1927, American baseball player Babe Ruth became the first player to hit 60 home runs in a single season. His record stood until Roger Maris hit 61 in 1961. In 1949, the Berlin airlift officially ended after Western Allied powers delivered 2,323,738 tons of food, fuel, machinery, and other supplies to West Berlin, which had been cut off from the West during the Soviet blockade of Berlin. Always up to no good, aren't you, Soviets? It's 1954. The USS Nautilus, the world's first nuclear-powered vessel, was commissioned by the U.S. Navy. 1955, actor James Dean died in an automobile crash as he drove to a car rally in Salinas, California. It became a symbol of the confused, restless, and idealistic youth of the 1950s. And James Dean never got older. 1955. 1965, in Indonesia, a group of army conspirators known as the September 30th movement. Well, I got a cough. Hold on a second.
Bless you.
All right, I'm back. That had to be done. In 1965, an Indonesia group of army conspirators known as the September 30th movement began an abortive coup, and by the following morning, they had kidnapped and murdered 6 army generals. The movement claimed that it had seized power to forestall a coup against President Sukarno by a council of generals. So they got busy in that day in 1965. 2005, on September 30th, the Danish newspaper Jyllands-Posten printed satiric cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad, provoking violent protests by Muslims worldwide. Don't make fun of our invisible man if you can help it. Our invisible man is special. September 30th, our featured event. 1938, Munich Agreement signed. Peace in our lifetime. Oh, here it coming. The notorious Munich Agreement, in which Britain's Neville Chamberlain encouraged Britain and France to appease Adolf Hitler's demands in hope of preventing World War II, was reached in 1938. And of course, Neville Chamberlain said, "Peace in our lifetimes." Oh yeah, you got all kinds of peace. So much peace you couldn't even handle it. What a disaster. Do not appease the Nazis.
No,
They're just going to take more. They don't care about your stinking rules. That's what I say in this country. Ignore the Nazis. They're just Nazis. Everything they say is meant to breed hate in your mind for other people. Our feature biography, L.A. Wiesel, American author and Nazi hunter. Speaking of Nazis, born September 30th, 1928 in Szeged, Romania, and died July 2nd, 2016 at the age of 87 in New York. Other biographies besides Truman Capote and L.A. Wiesel, Johnny Mathis, American singer, born in 1935. Marion Cotillard, French actress, born in 1975. Johnny Mathis was born in 1935. I think I said 75. Maybe I didn't. I'm not awake yet. 1980s Swiss tennis player Martina Hingis was born. So happy 45th birthday to Martina Hingis. Hardly seems that she could be that old already. Where does the time go, right? And National Day Calendar. We're going to update what day it is. The National Day Calendar is National Mud Pack Day. So that's the stuff you put on your face that's supposed to keep the moisture and whatnot that a lot of people do so they can look young until they're, 102. It's National Chewing Gum Day. So chew that gum, don't get it stuck in your hair. It's National Orange Shirt Day. Orange Shirt Day. That'll be big in the Netherlands, huh? Orange shirt. Wear an orange shirt. I got a couple of them
here. So that day is usually in April, I think.
Oh, okay. It's National Love People Day. We covered that earlier. Love people. It's just be nice to them anyway. National Hot Mulled Cider Day. Hot Mulled Cider. It's cider with, looks like cinnamon. So those are your days for today. September 30th. Not a whole lot of exciting stuff for me to get excited about. I don't know. I'm just not feeling it for any. Maybe chewing gum. I don't know.
Chewing gum.
September 30th. Those are the days for today. September 30th, 2024 on Before Chewing Gum.
This has been Allison here from the Netherlands on a tired and cold Monday. I hope you guys have a good rest of your week. Tomorrow is, of course, Good Tuesday News Day. We'll be covering all the good news we can find. So make sure, if you're not already, to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you know when we go live and post a video. Comment down below if you enjoy chewing on chewing gum and what you think about staying in a natural disaster after the government has warned you to please leave. That has been us. We will see you tomorrow. Here is our mic drop moment.
All right.
Hey, let's do a song. Here's a song that Kris wrote, 10 years ago? And I sang it and I loved it, and I've been singing it so long I've kind of claimed it all for my own, but I would really be honored if you'd sing it with me.
It's not my song, guys.
Well, up to now, that was the proudest moment of my life. This might be the proudest.
Sunday morning with
Johnny.
no way to hold my head that didn't hurt.
I think Johnny just liked having Kris Kristofferson around.
And the beer I had for breakfast wasn't bad, so I had one more for dessert. Then I fumbled in my closet, threw my clothes and found my cleanest dirty shirt.
Yeah, lived a lot of
Then I
people.
washed my face and combed my hair, stumbled down the stairs to meet
I don't know if that's
today.
tragic or not tragic.
I smoked my brain the night before on cigarettes and songs that I'd been picking. But I lit my first and watched a small kid cussing at a can that he was kicking. Then I crossed the empty street and caught the Sunday smell of someone frying chicken.
This song's making me hungry.
Thought it took me back to something that I'd lost somehow, somewhere along the way.
On that Sunday morning sidewalk.
On the Sunday morning sidewalk, wishing, Lord, that I was stoned.
I wish the Lord that I was stoned.
Cause there's something about a Sunday.
Remember the networks told Johnny Cash not to sing that line on television? Don't sing about being stoned. And he said, I don't care what you say, he's singing
And
it.
there's nothing short of die.
Johnny didn't care. But the censors
Yeah.
censor my
art.
heart.
Shut up, yeah.
City sidewalk. Sunday morning coming down.
Yay!
Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notify buttons, and follow our other channels, Toxic Alley, History of Gravy, and Scratchy Old Records.